All right, thank you all so much. As Judge Mosley mentioned, my name is Sam Flynn. I'm Executive Director for Kentucky's Office of Medical Cannabis, and today I want to provide you all with a little update on our program, where we're at, and certainly where we're headed. A lot of excitement. Obviously, we're less than 50 days away from the date that medical cannabis becomes legal to possess for cardholders here in Kentucky, and also the first date on which cardholders can, or patients here in Kentucky can ultimately apply for medical cannabis cards. So a lot of important, exciting updates. I think, let's see if this clicker works. Is it? Oh, there we go. All right. So a little bit about today. We're going to talk about the legislation behind medical cannabis here in the Commonwealth, how this came about, what has transpired since that time, and where we're certainly heading next. We have a number of updates. So first, as you all know, in 2023, Senate Bill 47 was passed by the General Assembly and signed into law by Governor Beshear, bipartisan bill that legalizes medical cannabis beginning January 1 of 2025. We needed to move up that time frame for the business licensing, and this past year came around with some additional changes to the law, and so I want to talk a little bit about that. Kentucky's medical cannabis program. We began implementation in June of 2023, shortly after the bill was passed. Our mission is to ensure Kentuckians suffering with severe medical conditions like cancer, PTSD, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, have safe, affordable access to medical cannabis. We want to make sure that this program is safe in terms of the products that these folks ultimately are going to be consuming. We want them to be medical grade products, very important part of our program. We also want to make sure that these products are secure in our communities, and that's something that I've talked about as we've traveled the state, and certainly something that we have built into the bedrock of our program. The Kentucky Office of Medical Cannabis oversees oversees the medical cannabis program here in the state, and certainly if you have any questions about medical cannabis in your communities, whether it's the businesses, whether it's cardholders, please reach out to us with those questions. So our executive leadership team, important piece to note on that is that we do have two divisions, one for enforcement and compliance. So one of the questions we get quite a lot is, will you have folks going out in the state to make sure that these businesses are following all the rules and regulations that are set forth in the law and in the regulations that you all have promulgated? The answer is yes. We've brought on an individual who has decades of experience in the cannabis industry, so going all the way back into the early 2000s, and cannabis years are sort of like dog years, so he's got a ton of experience. And we've also brought on a significant number of folks from law enforcement and from folks with military backgrounds to be those inspectors, to make sure those facilities are following those rules and regulations. We also have a division of licensure and access, and that division will be staffed with folks, and certainly currently is staffed with folks who will be helping folks that live in your communities that have questions about how they can become a cardholder, help them through that process. So we're being very intentional about both sides of this program and making sure that it works. We also have some advisory boards that are attached to the medical cannabis program in Kentucky. One is statutory, that's the Board of Physicians and Advisors. Important group made up of doctors and physicians appointed by the state licensure boards to advise us and to advise the General Assembly about what kind of changes we may need with respect to medical cannabis laws going forward, particularly as it relates to healthcare. How many milligrams of THC is allowed in a product, for example? How much medical cannabis can an individual have? What kinds of conditions we're going to allow in our program? That one, very important piece that the Board of Physicians and Advisors has already made a recommendation to expand the qualifying conditions. As some of you may know, we are one of the most restrictive states in terms of the list of conditions we have. Perfect example is many of the other states that surround us have medical cannabis programs, and they include things like terminal illness. Our law does not include that. That's one of the recommendations that the Board of Physicians and Advisors has made, and that, again, is a medical recommendation. We also have the Team Kentucky Medical Cannabis Work Group, and this is looking at all of the ways that medical cannabis is going to impact us as a state, impact people individually if they're a card holder or a caregiver, and how they're going to impact your communities as well. So we're going to be looking at things like occupational safety and health. We're going to be looking at things like law enforcement. Judge Muller's here today. He's one of the members of the Team Kentucky Medical Cannabis Work Group. We have brought on folks from around state government and from local government to help solve sort of the bigger problems, bigger challenges that our medical cannabis program is going to face moving forward. So if you guys have thoughts about policy issues moving forward, certainly reach out to Judge Muller, reach out to myself, and those are things that we'll certainly consider as we move forward in this program. So I talked about the law. Senate Bill 47. All of this is codified at KRS Chapter 218B. If you have questions about the law, you can go to our website. You can link directly to this. You can go to the LRC page and find this. Important to know. Implementation timeline. So we talked a little bit about how this started, how we've implemented it, creating the Team Kentucky Medical Cannabis Work Group. We were given until July 1 of 2024 to have all of our regulations promulgated. We had that done by March of this year. All of our regulations, save for 2 ordinary regulations, are currently in effect. So we have moved swiftly in this process. We've also moved up the timeline. So there was a little bit of talk earlier about how there's not necessarily bipartisanship in Frankfurt. I assure you that there is, because we worked hand in glove with the legislature on some very important issues, particularly ensuring that we move up the timeline for business licensing so that folks can have medical cannabis at the soonest possible date. These are people suffering with cancer and PTSD. Under the prior law, we wouldn't have been able to start this process truly until January 1 of next year. So it was very important, and certainly want to thank Senator West, Representative Nemes for their assistance in passing House Bill 829, which did that, and did a number of other important things that we'll talk about momentarily. You'll also see up here on this timeline that we have currently started our licensing for medical cannabis businesses. I'm sure many of you saw in the news that we had a license lottery for cultivators and processors. So going back, we opened the portal for folks to apply because we moved up that timeline in July of this year. 4,998 businesses applied for medical cannabis business licenses of one type or another between July 1 and August 31st at 11:59 p.m. And people were applying at that time as well, for better or worse. And since that time, we've been moving through the application process, reviewing them, making sure that everything checks out, and ultimately we're holding all of our licenses for the various categories as we go. All of that is live streamed. All of that is conducted by the Kentucky Lottery Corporation. We want to make sure that this is fair and transparent. Moving on, again, that new legislation that passed last year, it created an Office of Medical Cannabis. Important, we needed an organizational structure to actually make this work. Moved up that timeline. It also removed the provisional receipt loophole. And this is one thing where I want to talk a little bit about bipartisan cooperation. We found this issue in the prior law, and what it was on January 1, under the previous law, folks would have been able to apply for a medical cannabis card. And regardless of whether we approved them or denied them, they would have been able to get a receipt and purchase up to 45 days of medical cannabis. Then if we subsequently denied them, they could have just come right back around and applied again, essentially creating a quasi-adult use market here in Kentucky. Well, we live our values, and certainly our values are making sure that this is a safe and secure program. And we want to make sure that we're following not only the letter of the law, but the intent of the law. So we worked with the legislature to close that loophole, make sure that medical cannabis will only be in the hands of people that actually need it, that are qualified for it, and that have got a medical cannabis card and are not in the hands of anybody else. A couple other important pieces there as well, clarifying dispensaries can't sell anything until January 1 of next year. And then it also talked a little bit about the local government opt-in, opt-out which we'll be coming to shortly. So I talked about our regulations, license types. These are the businesses that we are currently licensing. Cultivators, straightforward, has to be grown indoors in Kentucky. All the medical cannabis that is grown, all the medical cannabis in Kentucky that's ultimately dispensed has to be grown, processed, and tested right here in Kentucky. So all of these businesses have to be located here, and all the jobs that are going to come with these businesses will be Kentucky jobs. So very important piece to that. Processors, they're the ones who are taking raw plant material from these cultivators and turning it into finished products. So things like nebulizers, things like edibles, things like ointments, tinctures, and topicals. Very important that we make sure that those products are safe. So the safety compliance facilities, and I know that's a long phrase, it means the testing lab, are going to be testing both the raw plant material and the finished products to make sure that these are truly medical grade products. I'll also note that our processors have to be GMP permitted by Kentucky's Department for Public Health as well, just like any other food manufacturers in Kentucky. Finally, dispensaries, and this is one that I want to spend a moment on because, you know, folks, when you think about dispensaries, if you've gone to other states, if you've gone to Michigan, or if you've gone to Colorado on vacation, or what have you, folks think of these like smoke shops or vape shops or places where folks would buy adult use products. That is not what these are going to look like in Kentucky's program. Again, we want to make sure that these are secure in our communities. We want to be focused on the healthcare aspects of this program, and that's certainly what we're going to do. We do not allow the sale of food and beverage in these facilities. This is not a gas station. We do not allow the sale of hemp-derived cannabinoids or any other kinds of products that folks might associate with an adult use market. We don't allow the sale of bongs or joints or anything that would allow an individual to smoke medical cannabis. Obviously, that's prohibited by law. This is going to be a pharmacy-like experience for people that have very serious illnesses and conditions. So again, we want to make sure that this is about healthcare and healthcare only. And that's what our facilities are going to look like. Got a lot of requirements at these facilities for security. Trying to move on. Oh. All right. Yeah, so a lot of security requirements at these facilities. Again, I mentioned the testing, recalls, age restrictions. Folks under the age of 18 cannot enter these facilities. Now, we may have minors who are card holders, so a child may have cancer or PTSD or epilepsy. If they do and their parent or legal guardian allows them to participate in the program, they have to see not one but two doctors, unlike adults, but they will never be able to purchase until they reach the age of majority. So again, nobody under the age of 18 can even enter these facilities. Significant requirements for surveillance and alarms, which certainly will help our law enforcement, and again, physical lighting and security requirements as well. So the numbers. We're going to have ultimately about 80 licensees, 10 cultivator Tier 1, 4 Tier 2, 2 Tier 3. Tier 1s are the smallest. We have already issued those licenses. About 2,500 square feet of indoor growing space, so a really large condo thereabouts. Cultivator Tier 2, 10,000 square feet, so that's a little bit getting more towards the industrial size. And ultimately, cultivator Tier 3, 2 licenses, and that's 25,000 square feet of indoor cultivation space, which is truly industrial in scale, and it's about a half an acre of indoor growing space. We'll have 10 of those processors and 48 dispensaries, and I'll talk a little bit about those. So we have 11 licensing regions, and here in about a week and a half, we're going to be holding the license lottery for 9 of these regions. So all the regions except for the one surrounding Fayette County and the ones surrounding Jefferson County. So the rest of the state, the folks that have applied for medical cannabis dispensary licenses, they will be, the ones that are eligible will be entered into a lottery. Kentucky Lottery Corporation will conduct that lottery for each category, and we will have folks that are selected. Once they're selected, they'll have an opportunity to pay their license fee. Once that's done, they will be our medical cannabis dispensaries for the Commonwealth. Important piece to note, no more than one per county. So if we pull 2 out, let's say it's for Bourbon County, the first one that gets pulled gets to stay, the other one has to move. Our law also allows for medical cannabis businesses to request a change of location. We certainly are going to let them do that if they want to move to another location, so long as it follows all the other rules. We wanted to ensure that there was geographic spread throughout the state, and we developed these regions with Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, sort of looking at it from a whole government approach to make sure that the drive time for Kentucky patients is the shortest drive time from their home to the dispensary nearest them. We also listened to local officials, probably many of you in this room that I've talked to early in this process about we don't want to see these on every single street corner. We designed this with you all in mind. We want to make sure that this is secure, that it's limited in your communities, but ultimately that there are access points for patients around the state. That's what that drive time analysis looks like. So if you'll see, the green areas is basically between 0 to 15 minutes, yellow 15 to 30, orange 30 to 45, and then red is 45 to an hour. So this is based on a hypothetical where all of the facilities are located in sort of the larger communities in these regions. We will rerun this drive time analysis to make sure that there's no dispensary deserts when we move forward and get those folks licensed. So again, the rules, no more than one per county, important piece. Licensing fees, so we talked about the applications. 4,998 folks applied. Certainly a lot of interest in the medical cannabis program in Kentucky. A lot of people want to be a part of this. A lot of Kentuckians, some folks from out of state as well. The applications by category, dispensary was obviously the largest, 4,075 applications, and we've already worked through those cultivator tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and processors. Moving on, so we have issued 26 licenses. That's the cultivators and the processors, and those folks are in the process right now of meeting with us, meeting likely with many of you. In fact, some of them have already said that they've reached out to some planning and zoning folks around the state. Some of them are requesting changes of location. If you have a licensee in your jurisdiction and you have questions from me, please reach out to us. We would love to talk to you and answer any questions you might have about the licensee, and we can convene a meeting with us, the new licensee, and yourselves, and work through any adjustments or any questions that you guys may have. We want to be a partner to the businesses. We want to be a partner to you all, and certainly we've tried to do that as we've gone through this process. So those dispensary lotteries, the 25th, so coming up here in about a week and a half, and then the final license lottery will be on December 16th of this year, and that'll be for those last two regions, Bluegrass and Kentuckiana. So, local governments, and many of you have likely heard this presentation before. Now we have some data. So local governments have had the opportunity to opt in affirmatively. Everybody started from a position of in. You can opt in and say affirmatively, yes, we're part of this. You could take no action at all and stay in. You could opt out by ordinance. If you opted out all the cities within your jurisdictions, and they could opt back in. And you could also put it on the ballot, and 53 counties certainly did that. And again, if you opt in or stayed in, you can still put time, place, and manner restrictions on these facilities. So where they're going to be, zoning just like anything else. You can establish reasonable local fees for administering or administration of cannabis businesses. So an important piece, it's in KRS 218B130. If you have questions about that, please, again, contact us. I will tell you on the fees, folks ask a lot, what do those fees look like? Well, every time a local government puts fees on cannabis businesses, we put that on our website. There are already ones up there, so if you want to see what other folks have done, we want to provide that information. So please come to our website and check out our local government page. All of that information is certainly there. Cannot enact an ordinance that imposes an undue burden. If you're letting medical cannabis facilities be in your communities, you actually have to let them do what they're supposed to do. Again, so 53 counties put it on the ballot, 53 cities as well, and we're going to get to that. Again, the opt-out piece. If you are in, and many jurisdictions are in, if a business locates in your jurisdiction, you can still opt out up until January 1 of 2025. So there's still time if you learn that you're going to have a dispensary in your community and people have questions about that and you want to take action, it's certainly an option up until that January 1 date. If you do take action, please notify us. It's required by the law, but as a favor to us, we want to include all that information on our website so we know what the landscape looks like. It's good for your colleagues to see what other communities are doing. It's certainly good for the businesses to understand where they can operate and where they can't. It's good for the patients as well. So again, visit our webpage. It's the local government page at kymedcan.ky.gov. Got a lot of great information up there. This is prior to the election. So this is what the opt-in, opt-out map looked like. Those purple counties are hybrids where either the county or a city or cities within the county are in and the other is out. Blue is they haven't taken any action or they've affirmatively opted in. And then red is they're completely opted out. Local government ballot resolutions. So we got a very pretty and colorful map here that provides exactly what the landscape looked like in terms of who was going to be voting for this. In some of your communities, folks voted on it twice, depending on what city and county they lived in. And those red counties there are ones where folks voted or had to vote on it twice, at least in some communities. Election results. We now have final election results, but it passed everywhere. Medical cannabis is uniformly popular throughout the Commonwealth. This vote was not just on whether folks could consume medical cannabis. This vote was actually about whether the businesses can locate there. So medical cannabis, uniformly popular throughout the Commonwealth, again, passed everywhere. And these are the jurisdictions that voted on it. Again, we had folks from every corner of Kentucky voting on this, and again, uniformly popular. This is what the map looks like right now. So we have 4 counties total where medical cannabis businesses cannot operate at all. And the rest of them, either it's completely permitted throughout the county or there's cities that allow for it or the county allows for it. So again, all of this is at kymedcan.ky.gov if you have questions about what other folks have done. And then finally, those are the 4 jurisdictions that are fully prohibiting it. Next piece. So folks have voted on it. This is certainly going to impact those cities or counties that opted out, that did not vote on it. Folks can put it on the ballot. They can do that through a petition, and that's KRS 218B 130. Again, folks in your community can try to get this on the ballot at the next general election. There's some important rules and regulations around that. The threshold was raised, I think it's 5% of the registered voters to 10 in House Bill 829. So again, you got a little bit of time before the next general election. So if you have questions about that, please call us. Please check out the statute. Everything that you need to know is in there. Again, this is going to impact schools. So we have kids throughout the Commonwealth that have serious medical conditions just like adults do. Schools have to make a decision by December 1 of this year, so they've got a little bit of time left on whether they're going to enact a policy to allow medical cannabis in schools. Schools, I will note, already have policies in place that allow for kids to use opioids and other prescription drugs as well, federally controlled substances as well. Medical cannabis is treated a little bit differently under Kentucky law. Schools have to affirmatively say, school districts have to affirmatively say, yes, we're going to allow medical cannabis, And if they do that, they have to ensure that their policy allows for a couple things. First, it has to ensure that a school administrator or nurse is there to administer the medical cannabis to the student. The policy has to allow the nurse or school administrator to personally opt out and say, if I don't want to administer medical cannabis to a student, then that individual can say, I don't want to do that. And also, there's rules requiring that the student or that the medical cannabis is not within sight of the students at any time except for the student to whom it's being administered at the time of administration. So a couple of important pieces there. There's a couple school districts that have allowed. There's far more that have said no, and even larger population of school districts that have not taken any action at all. So if you have folks, if you have superintendents, if you have other folks that have questions about this in the schools, please have them reach out to us as well. We're happy to take any questions that they have and share any information that we have about which school districts are in, which ones are out, et cetera. So again, very important pieces. This is my email address. Please email me if you have any questions, call. We have a contact us page if you have folks that are in your communities that have questions. If they're patients or ultimately caregivers or practitioners, have them reach out to us. We have webinars for practitioners, so if you have doctors or APRNs that are interested in working in this space, we have webinars. We've already had over 1,200 physicians and APRNs in Kentucky sign up for our webinars and attend. We'll also be having webinars for folks in the community, so actual patients, so that they can attend, get the information that they need about what they got to do. And there's a lot of rules and regulations that they got to follow to have access to medical cannabis, as I'm sure you all know. And we want to make sure that everybody's following the rules. So with that, I want to thank you all again. I want to thank the Kentucky Association of Counties for having me, Judge Mosley, Judge Livingston. I do want to offer you all opportunity to ask any questions that you may have while I am here. And I see one right here. So can you sell a license is the question, I think. So medical cannabis businesses can sell their license. It is provided in the law. It's KRS 218B 080. So that is provided in the law, and they have to follow a process for doing that. There's going to be a form on our webpage to allow those businesses to do that. And essentially what the requirements are is that they have to stand in the same shoes as the business that is selling the license, selling the business or selling the license. So they would have to meet all the same criteria as the business did when they applied. One second. Ma'am? So all of the businesses that are locating here are required to register with the Secretary of State's office. They're all going to be located within the Commonwealth, so all the cannabis that is ultimately consumed here has to be grown here. So they are all Kentucky businesses. All of their employees will likely be Kentuckians, depending on whether they live here or some folks may live across the river, but they're all required to be Kentucky businesses. Yes, sir.
On the 25th, I know it's a lottery, it's live stream, but this is going to be a number that will equate to that business. You'll notify them, right? It will not be something where we'll know, hey, that's a business that will be located in this specific.
You'll know that day. So we held our first license lottery for the processors and the cultivators a few weeks ago. The entire thing is live streamed. So we provide a de-identified list to the Lottery Corporation, so the Lottery Corporation has no idea what number is being pulled. The numbers are ran through a random number generator, and again, they're third party, so fair, transparent. Those numbers come back to us, we re-identify them, and we actually read them out with the county location on the day. So you will essentially know the day of. You, and then I'll come back. So we're working very hard with, thank you, Judge. So the question was, when is the first date we think a crop will be available for medical cannabis, so the cultivators, when they'll be up and operational. So we've already begun meeting with every single cultivator, and we'll continue to do that to help them get up and operational at the soonest possible date. They're required to be inspected before they can bring seeds, seedlings, plants, et cetera, into the Commonwealth. They can do that one time. And that is a process that is overseen by the Office of Medical Cannabis. It's entered into our state's track and trace system, which traces every item of medical cannabis from the plant, from the seed all the way to the sale and back. So for example, if somebody had an adverse reaction and reported and say, that medication made me feel a little bit, I had a stomach ache or what have you, they can report that to us. We can look in our system, see what product they purchased, when they purchased it, and track it all the way back to the plant or plants that it was grown from. But with respect to time frame, so we're working with them to be up and operational at the soonest possible date. We don't have a specific date. It's going to depend largely upon the cultivators themselves. Many of them have facilities already that can be quickly repurposed for this. And we do allow a lot of flexibility to get up and operational sooner rather than later. So I don't have a set date for you, but we're working very hard on that. And I know that I'm out of time. Thank you all so much for your time today. If any of you have any questions, I'll be right outside. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and I'll stay as long as you like. Thank you so much.